It happened on a Thursday afternoon, January 18th, 2024. The kind of winter day where the air feels thin and the sunlight has this washed-out, metallic quality, like it's not fully committed to warming anything. School had just let out for break, and my two stepsons, who were 7 and 10 at the time, were already begging to set up a lemonade stand on the corner of our street. Normally, I don't mind. Our neighborhood is one of those rare pockets of a big city that somehow stays quiet. Clean sidewalks, parents who know each other, kids who bounce from yard to yard like they're all siblings. There's even a police station less than a mile away. It's the sort of place where you start to believe nothing bad can happen. But that morning I woke up with a weight in my chest I couldn't explain. Maybe it was the news story I'd seen the night before about another trafficking bust along the interstate. Maybe it was how close we are to the border. Or maybe it was just instinct, the kind that whispers before your rational mind can argue. 2 months ago, because of those instincts, I bought each boy a bright orange whistle, the loud kind meant for emergencies. I tied them to their backpacks and made them practice blowing them. I told them if they ever felt scared, confused, or trapped, they were to use those whistles without hesitation. We went over the difference between uncomfortable and dangerous. They understood. So when my older stepson was making his lemonade signs that day, I reminded him again about strangers, about staying near the house, about watching his brother. He looked at me, serious as only a 10-year-old can be, and asked, "Should I bring my whistle?" I didn't even hesitate. Yes, bring it. Wear it. Use it if you need me. I left the front window cracked open and told him, "If something feels wrong, you blow that whistle like your life depends on it, and I'll be there." The boys set up just down the street on the corner where our quiet neighborhood meets the main road. Cars pass steadily there, not enough to feel dangerous, but enough to draw customers. Their friends drifted in and out, helping pour lemonade, waving signs, laughing. The kind of wholesome scene people post online with captions about childhood. For the first hour, everything felt normal. I was half watching a documentary in the living room, half listening for anything that sounded out of place. I could hear their muffled voices every now and then. Nothing alarming, nothing unusual. And then the whistle blew, not a quick, uncertain blast. It was long, hard, desperate, the kind of sound that makes your blood run cold before you even move. I bolted out the front door so fast I don't remember turning the handle. The sky looked sharper, the air colder, as if the world had snapped into focus. All I could see was the kids clustered tightly together, every one of them, and a red car pulled slightly up onto the curb. A Dodge Demon. Flashy, bright red, heavy engine, built to be noticed. The driver was already getting back into the car as I ran. I didn't look at the license plate. I should have. I still hate myself for that. But in that moment, my mind only cared about one thing. Were the kids safe? My older stepson's face was pale. He pointed at the man through the car window, his hands shaking, and told me what happened. The man had parked, stepped out, and started asking them their ages. He didn't buy lemonade. He didn't make small talk. He asked their names, then turned his attention to my younger stepson, the one obsessed with cars. The man told him he had something cool to show him inside his car. He said it casually, like it was a harmless offer, like it wasn't the exact scenario parents warn their children about. My younger stepson took a step toward him, just one. But my older stepson grabbed his arm. He remembered the rule. He remembered what I'd told them that morning, and the moment he felt that cold prick of fear, he blew the whistle with everything he had. By the time I reached the car, the man had one foot inside. I slammed my hand on the hood, yelling without thinking, demanding to know why he'd tell a child to get into his car. He didn't answer. His eyes were flat, emotionless, like he was evaluating something I couldn't see. Then he shut his door and sped off. The entire confrontation lasted less than 15 seconds. I called the police immediately. They arrived fast, faster than I expected, because a red Dodge Demon is hard to hide. They searched the neighborhood, issued alerts, took statements from every child. They told me they were taking it very seriously. But even after the officers left, the air around our corner felt wrong. The kids wouldn't leave each other's sides. My younger stepson kept asking, "Why would he tell me to get in his car? Why me?" and I didn't have an answer that would make sense to a child, or even to myself. That night, the community website lit up with parents asking questions, warning each other, sharing what little they knew. Some wanted to believe it was a misunderstanding. Others knew better. Because there's one thing no one wants to admit out loud. People like that don't approach groups of children by accident. They don't leave unless they're scared away. And they don't forget the ones who got away. I still replay the moment I saw the car door open. How quickly he moved. How deliberate his questions were. The way he locked onto my younger son. And the way he peeled out. Like someone who wasn't running from guilt, but from being interrupted too early. For the first time since living here, our neighborhood doesn't feel like a bubble anymore. It feels exposed. Watched. Like someone peeled back a layer we were never supposed to see. 3 days later, just when I thought things were settling, I read a post on my Facebook community group about more trafficking incidents in or close to the area. The culprits would mark certain houses and areas. This opened a ton-load of paranoia in the message thread. A common theme that came up in a lot of these messages were of a faint, yellowish mark, in many cases a X graffitied on wheelie bins and mailboxes. Without hesitation, I stepped out into the front lawn. Body searched both our postbox and wheelie bin from head to toe, my phone flashlight on for extra exposure. And then, I dropped my phone in disbelief. It's strange how ordinary memories can rot from the inside out, revealing something much darker years later. I was 12 years old, in 7th grade, when I started getting sick in a way that made no sense. The year was 2011, early fall, September 23rd, to be exact, because I remember the air had that dry, dusty feeling that comes when summer heat hasn't quite left yet. My friend at the time, who I'll call Mara, lived only a few blocks away from my school. Her house was the hangout spot. Her parents worked late, the fridge was always full, and every room felt cluttered with posters, stuffed animals, and, unfortunately, rodents. Mara was obsessed with them. Hamsters, gerbils, 2 rats, even a tank of mice in her room. The smell hit you the moment you walked through her doorway. Warm, musky, sharp. The first time I slept over at her house, on October 1st, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. Nausea, vomiting, a heaviness behind my eyes like I was wading through wet concrete. I'd only had soda and popcorn the night before, but by the time my mom picked me up at 10 a.m., I could barely keep my head upright in the back seat. She thought it was a virus, maybe mild food poisoning. Nothing unusual, but it kept happening. October 22nd, November 5th, December 3rd. Every time I slept at Mara's house. The next morning I woke up dizzy, clammy, and barely able to stay awake long enough to get into the car. And every time, by late afternoon, I felt fine again, as if nothing had happened. After the 5th time, my mom finally sat me at the kitchen table. It was December 11th, early morning, cold enough that the windows had that thin glaze of frost. She folded her hands and asked, very quietly, if I was drinking alcohol at Mara's house. The question was so absurd I laughed. I had never touched alcohol in my life, and the idea of 12-year-olds sneaking shots while surrounded by pet rodents felt ridiculous. But my mom didn't laugh. She'd noticed the pattern. She'd seen my symptoms, and she knew what hangovers looked like. I told her no. I told her I thought the smell of the animals made me sick, but I could tell she didn't buy it. She banned me from sleeping at Mara's house, but still let me go to other friends' homes. I didn't mind. I rationalized it. Maybe I really was allergic to something in that room. Maybe it was mold. Maybe it was the animals. I wanted a normal explanation. On January 14th, 2012, our friend group planned a movie night at Mara's house. Just a few hours, no sleeping over. Afterward, we were going to sleep at my friend Lily's place, where I had stayed dozens of times with no problems. We watched 2 movies in Mara's living room. I didn't eat anything except a bag of chips we all shared. I didn't drink anything that didn't come sealed from the fridge. I didn't leave the main room once. We walked to Lily's house around 9:30 p.m. The cold air biting at our faces. The kind of dark winter night where the streetlights glow in hazy orange halos. Everything felt normal. But by the next morning at 7:54 a.m., I was sick again. So sick I couldn't walk straight. My vision blurred at the edges. I fell asleep in the car twice on the way home and then threw up in the driveway. My mom didn't hesitate. She took me straight to urgent care. I remember sitting on the exam table under those harsh fluorescent lights while my mom explained my symptoms to the doctor. She told him she believed me when I said I wasn't drinking. But she also said in a tight, controlled voice that something was wrong. The doctor listened. He nodded. And then he looked at me in that clinical, evaluating way adults have when they're trying to decide whether a kid is lying. He ordered a blood alcohol test. It came back at 0. I felt this weird sense of vindication. Until he spoke again. He said, "We can test for GHB or Rohypnol, but if the substance was taken last night, it won't show up now." He paused. Then he told my mom, very plainly, that based on the pattern, the only consistent variable was Mara's house. Someone in that house, intentionally or unintentionally, had drugged me. He said it so casually but so confidently that my stomach dropped even deeper. My mom's face changed instantly, this mixture of fear and rage I had never seen. But there wasn't evidence, not enough to point fingers or take legal action. All she could do was ban me from ever stepping foot in that house again. And I didn't. I cut Mara out quietly, gradually. She never seemed to notice, but her brother did. 2 months later, on March 20th after school, I logged into Facebook for the first time in weeks. I had one message. It was from Evan, Mara's older brother, 17 years old, tall, quiet in that unsettling way where you can't read a person at all. He had this habit of watching us, not like a sibling being nosy, but like someone taking inventory. He never talked much, but when he did, it made my skin crawl. I didn't know why at the time. His message said, "Why don't you come over anymore? I recorded some shows I think you'll like. You should come watch them." No emojis. No punctuation, just blunt, intentional. I stared at the message for a long time. I didn't reply. I didn't tell my mom. I didn't tell my friends. I just deleted my Facebook account entirely. Looking back now, as an adult, the pattern is obvious. The symptoms, the timing, the fact that I only got sick after being in that house, and his sudden interest when I disappeared. I'll never know exactly what happened. I'll never know whether it was him, or whether someone slipped something into my drink without me noticing, or whether there were nights I was too dazed to remember everything that happened. But I do know this. A 12-year-old's body doesn't react like that for no reason. A teenage boy doesn't suddenly miss the presence of a girl 5 years younger unless something darker was at play. And a child doesn't forget the feeling of waking up heavy and numb and confused, like pieces of the night were missing. For years, I told myself it was all coincidence, all imagination. But occasionally late at night, I remember a detail I had buried on one of those sleepovers, long before I got sick for the first time. Mara's brother opened the bedroom door while we were pretending to sleep. He didn't say anything, didn't move. He just stood there in the dark hallway watching. And now, every time that memory resurfaces, I can't help wondering. How long did he stand there? How many times did he check? What was he waiting for? And what would have happened if my mom hadn't noticed the pattern when she did? It happened on February 19th, 2012. A cold Sunday morning in rural Texas where the winter air felt thin enough to crack. The sky was a pale, washed-out blue, the kind that makes shadows look stretched and unnatural. I remember the time exactly, 10:07 a.m., because I checked my phone before getting out of my truck. I was visiting my grandfather's grave for what would have been his 79th birthday. His death in March of 2011 had split my world open. I was 23 then, and grief still clung to me like wet clothes. That morning, the cemetery was completely empty. Not another car, not another voice, just rows of stone markers and clusters of bare oak trees surrounding everything like a quiet, watching audience. I kneeled in front of his headstone, the granite still cold from the night before, and let myself unravel. I lowered my head, whispering things I had been too stubborn to say while he was alive. The air smelled like frozen soil and cedar. I didn't hear footsteps. I didn't hear branches crack. But suddenly, my entire body went rigid. There's a type of fear that doesn't start in your mind. It detonates in your nerves first, like your body recognizes a predator before you consciously understand what's happening. That's what hit me. I looked up, confused at first, scanning the quiet graveyard. And then I saw him, a man running, full sprint, bursting out from the tree line on the far side of the cemetery. Dark jacket, dark jeans, lean build, moving faster than anyone casually out for a jog. He wasn't stumbling. He wasn't lost. Every part of his posture screamed intent, and he was running directly toward me. For half a second I couldn't think. My throat closed. The world narrowed to tunnel vision. Then instinct snapped back in like a whip, and I forced myself not to panic, not to look too fast, not to make myself seem weak or confused. I stood up slowly but walked quickly, angled toward my truck. I could hear him closing the distance. I swear I could feel the vibrations of his footfalls through the ground. My truck felt impossibly far away. By the time I reached the driver's side door, my hands were shaking. As I yanked the door open and slammed myself inside, I saw him again, now only 50 feet away, still sprinting with this terrifying, silent determination. I locked all the doors. He stopped short, exhaling sharply, and instead of turning away, he threw his arms up in visible frustration. Not confusion, not embarrassment, frustration, like I had ruined something important, like I had broken a plan he had been waiting to execute. It reminded me of someone reacting to a missed goal at a football game, but darker, sharper, almost angry. I started the engine without taking my eyes off him. As I accelerated to leave, I had to drive right past him. He didn't run. He didn't try to block the road. He just stood there, chest heaving, watching me. We made eye contact the entire time. I remember his expression perfectly. No surprise, no guilt, no attempt to look away. Just cold assessment, like he was memorizing my face the same way I was memorizing his. I left that cemetery shaking so badly I had to pull over a mile down the road. In the days that followed, I convinced myself he was maybe a jogger, maybe someone looking for help, maybe someone who got spooked by my reaction. Anything to make the memory feel less like a close call. For a long time, I tried not to think about it. But 3 years later, everything came crashing back. It was 2015, a slow afternoon at work. I downloaded an app full of true crime articles, paranormal sightings, cryptids, unsolved murders, serial killers. I scrolled out of boredom. And then I saw a name I recognized, a face I remembered, a face I had stared at through my truck window. Not perfectly, not completely, but close enough that my stomach turned to ice. I will not disclose his name. But he was a serial killer best known for abducting and murdering a teenager in Alaska, dismembering the body and scattering the remains into a frozen lake. He traveled constantly. He planned meticulously. He buried what he called kill kits across the country, containers filled with weapons, restraints, and tools he would return to months or even years later. He didn't kill impulsively. He killed by preparation. The article said that after his Alaska victim disappeared, he traveled through Texas in February of 2012 for a wedding. He arrived early, left without telling anyone, then vanished off the grid for several days before resurfacing at the event. The date hit me so hard my hands went numb. February 19th, 2012, he had been in Texas, unaccounted for, within driving distance of my town. And on his list of preferred hunting grounds, public parks, isolated trails, and cemeteries. 2 years later, when I picked up a book about his case, those same details were there in even colder, clearer language. He liked places where people let their guard down. He liked places where screams wouldn't be heard. He liked places just like the one where I had been kneeling alone. I sat there with the book open, and one thought anchored itself so firmly I couldn't breathe. I hadn't imagined that sprint. I hadn't imagined the frustration on his face when I locked the door. I hadn't imagined the feeling that something, or someone, had been waiting. The book mentioned that he would sometimes bury a kill kit near the spots where he planned to attack, even if the attack failed. He never retrieved all of them. Some were never found. For years after that, I avoided that cemetery completely. But sometimes, when I drive past the entrance, I catch myself staring at the tree line, wondering if a rusted metal container is still buried out there, sealed beneath roots and soil. Sometimes I wonder if he had already dug one up that morning, if he had been watching long before I noticed him, if he had been waiting for me to be distracted, mourning, alone. I still think about the way he raised his arms in anger, like something important slipped out of reach, like I was supposed to be another name on his list. He was fast, but that morning, I was faster, and thank God we never had the chance to officially meet.